All right. Good afternoon. I'm now going to bring the regular afternoon meeting of Township of Langley Council to order. And the first item is adoption and receipt of the agenda items. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Arneson moves, and second by Councillor Whitmarsh. All those in favour? Opposed and carried. Next item is the adoption of the minutes of the regular afternoon meeting of March 11th, 2019. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Ferguson, second. Seconder. Councillor Kunst, errors or omissions. Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I just wanted a clarification on item I1, page 5 to 6, and I just wanted to make sure that the understanding of the minutes was that we did not adopt the code of conduct, we just received it.
Yeah. So I think it was
brought
to...
the minutes please clearly reflect it was right. Receive only?
Yeah, that was brought to the attention of Lead Services after they were printed and prior to this meeting, so that correction will be made. Thank you. And that was yours? Okay, thanks. Oh, Councillor Long.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The item J2, the motion to reconsider that didn't pass. Are we sure that the correct names are there? Because it doesn't show you as opposed. And I think you are opposed to widening that section of 208.
Sorry.
This is on J2 in the motion to reconsider. It says it was defeated, but it doesn't show you as opposed.
I wasn't opposed.
Oh, okay.
To the reconsideration. That's
Good.
what the motion is, yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Okay. With that, show of hands. All those in favour? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And now I need a motion to resolve into special close for the items on the agenda. Councillor Ferguson and Councillor Whitmarsh seconds. Any on table? There's no on table items. Okay. All those in favour? Opposed? Carried. And I'll go to closed. Is presentations. And we have a presentation from Metro Vancouver regarding the Northwest Langley Wastewater Treatment Plant projects. Welcome here.
That looks good. Thank you very much, Mayor Froese. This afternoon I'm going to give Council a little bit of background how this project came to life. I'm going to outline the various components of it and then talk about what we've got ongoing and what we're planning to do. So to start off with, all the sewage, except for the little pink area in the Township of Langley in our Fraser sewerage area, goes to Annis's Island Wastewater Treatment Plant. The little pink area, of course, goes to Northwest Langley. So as part of our mandate to protect public health and the environment, we did a review of this servicing strategy in 2015 and determined that there's actually quite a savings if we take Pitt Meadows and Maple Ridge across the river to an upgraded wastewater treatment plant. So the cost savings was in the order of about $300 million over the life of the project. And there's a bunch of benefits for doing this. It supports the growth in the areas where growth is actually happening. We are also building an SSO storage tank, which will reduce the overflows into the Fraser River. This plant will be Metro Vancouver's first tertiary treatment plant, so we will be discharging effluent that's higher quality than mandated by the province or the feds. And we'll be introducing some fairly high quality odor control measures. So as part of this project, we did an extensive outreach before we got going, talking to almost 15,000 people through mail drops, email, Facebook posts, and those kind of things. And we heard a very key message that everyone was concerned about the quality of the water in the river. So really protect the river, improve the quality, protect the fish. Bridge users, neighbors, were concerned about the odor, and several people had talked about having a seismically resistant river crossing. So this is the Fraser River. I don't think my mouse, oh yes, I do get a mouse. This is the Fraser River coming down here, Golden Ears Bridge, Township of Langley on this side, Maple Ridge on that side. So this is our existing KC pump station, which currently pumps sewage 25 kilometers to Annis's Island Wastewater Treatment Plant. So as part of this project, we're going to build a new pump station and storage tank on this side. We'll have two pipes coming across the river and then we'll have the new treatment plant as well as a new outfall. So starting with the outfall, which is shown in orange down here, the treatment plant site is green. All the other items are things that could be impacted by the effluent. So as I mentioned earlier, this is a tertiary treatment plant, so we will be removing nutrients and disc filters at the end. So our environmental guys tell me that it'll be 7 times cleaner than the effluent currently being discharged by the existing Northwest Langley treatment plant. So we're currently doing a year-long study in the river, and the results of that will help us fine-tune the outfall design as well as the treatment process. Our existing treatment plant is up here in the corner. So the whole treatment plant will be constructed to the south on the site. It'll take us 4 years to build this. And once the plant is commissioned, the existing plant will be demolished, and this is where we will grow. Right now, the existing plant services about 30,000 people. This first build will be 240,000 people, and we will have the capability to expand to about 700,000 people as growth in the region occurs. So in addition to tertiary treatment, we are doing effluent heat recovery. We will be exporting biogas to Fortis, and we'll be exporting reclaimed water to hopefully our industrial neighbors. On the foreshore, we have to stay 60 meters back from the river because of the seismicity of the region. After an earthquake, this area will slide and sink into the river. So we've got a 60-meter setback on our site. We're hoping to do foreshore restoration to improve the Fraser River ecosystem. And we could have walking trails like we've shown here, or perhaps a park. On the sides of our site, because we are raising the site and preloading it, we've got to stay 25 meters back from any structure. So that area we're contemplating greenery and possibly a multi-use trail. This is a section down 201 with the viaduct going onto the Golden Ears, showing the multi-use trail. So we've actually started the early construction on our site. These cranes are used to install stone columns. So basically we're pounding gravel into the earth to densify it and strengthen it. We've also imported a lot of sand to start filling the site above the 200-year flood level. And that sand will also help consolidate the deep clay layers that are compressible. So the river crossing will actually be tunneled under the river. We have to get down roughly 45 meters to get to the seismically resistant soil, so there will not be any impact to the marine users or to the ecosystem on the surface. We will be using a rig like this to drill under the river from the Langley side. So this is similar to a water drilling rig. And so it'll drill under with probably an 8-inch bit, and then it'll pull reamers back and forth to enlarge the hole to the size we need for our pipe. So our pipes going across the river are just under 1 meter in diameter. So on the other side, on the Maple Ridge side, is where we actually put the pipe together. So as the hole is getting to be the right size, we will string this pipe out along the edge of the Catesy Reserve, and then just behind the noise barrier that goes along the Pitt Meadows Maple Ridge boundary. And so this will be pulled back in 1 day. So this is the pump station and SSO tank. The pump station is on the front side of this, and we need a new pump station because the pumping characteristics are very different, pumping 25 kilometers versus pumping 1.5 kilometers across the river. Also, the old station is below the floodplain and not seismically resistant, so we've got to do a lot of upgrades as part of that. Behind the pump station, we've got a 20,000 cubic meter storage tank. And what this will do is, during heavy rainfalls right now, we overflow at various manholes in Maple Ridge. It'll store that sewage until there's conveyance and treatment capacity, and then slowly feed it back into the system. So hopefully we'll eliminate all the overflows. We've also hired Brandon Gabriel of the Coquitlam First Nation, or Kwantlen First Nation. He's done some work for the end of the SSO tank. So the tank is surrounded with fins, and the art will be mounted on the side of the fins. So as you come over the Golden Years Bridge, you won't see anything, but as your car moves to the side, the image will slowly come into focus. It's called a lenticular wall. We also be having color changeable LED lights on the tank, so it'll glow at night and we can adjust the color. So in terms of schedule, we finished the project definition report last year, and that really defines the scope of the project, creates the estimates and all that, and that was endorsed by our board in October of last year. We're currently approaching about 90% design for the pump station and storage tank. The river crossing, we're about 30% design. As I mentioned, the ground improvements are ongoing right now, and we're just about to close tenders for the detailed design of the treatment plant. By the end of the summer, we hope to issue a proposal for detailed design of the outfall. So in terms of project budget, this is what we have in our long-range plan. The budget is roughly $1.3 billion. This is a growth project, so all of it will be funded by DCCs. And so thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Well, thank you very much. We have some questions from Council. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Council's representative, I sit on the Liquid Waste Committee. Used to be called the Sewer Committee as well, but now the Liquid Waste. And we did talk about this particular project at length at our particular meeting. And also discussion was made about going around and discussing the project with the user communities and planning for the future, and also planning for environmental measures. I did want to say that what have you got in mind for odor control for the site, if I may?
So our design standard will be that if you walk along the fence line, you should not smell our plant.
And certainly that's a big improvement. And the difference in the tertiary treatment versus what we're having right now, how is that implemented?
So the current plant is a secondary treatment plant. Mm-hmm. So we've gone to what we're calling an advanced secondary process, where we strip out a lot of the ammonia that's in the effluent, and then disc filters, which take out a lot of the fine particulate matter and contaminants with it.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you very much. That's like saying my veneer doesn't smell. It's a touchy subject. You'd commented you're going to try to reduce the overflow into the Fraser River.
Yes.
Reduce the flow. So does Metro Vancouver test the waters downstream of the Fraser? They do that?
Yes, we do.
Quite a bit. Okay. But then you said it was going to be 7 times cleaner. Like, that sounds good, but is it maybe still too dirty, or?
No, if we're building a very similar plant that Calgary has in Pine Creek, and I don't know if you know the Bow River, but there's a very small water body, but it's world-renowned trout fishing, and they have the same process going into that river.
Okay, so they're trying hard anyhow.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that you're going to try to. I don't know the dynamics of the like the ammonia or the to ship back to Fortis, and this overflow tank. Is there any way that you can put a biofilter, or does that work with human waste?
So on the storage tank, we will be putting a carbon scrubber on that tank to deal with the odor. On our side, we'll have a 2-stage, so we'll have a biological treatment and then a carbon as a polish.
No. I'm talking about generating like a digester.
Our digester gas, yes. So on the treatment plant, we will be basically storing and then pushing out the digester gas or biogas to Fortis. But we can't do that on the storage tank side. Was that your question?
Yeah. So the storage
there's
side's
not
like a
enough
reception.
gas produced there to make it, because all the solids that produce the gas are going to get pumped across the river.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. It's a real, nobody wants to, everyone just wants to flush the toilet and it'd be gone, but it's a real, we went on a tour, the mayor and I and a bunch of us last term, and it was interesting, very interesting. It's a lot of money has to be spent for our septic. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kunst.
Yeah, just curious how many maybe new jobs would be generated by this facility?
So during the construction, a significant number in the thousands during that 4-year construction period. Once it's operational, we'll take our staff level from 3 to 30.
Okay. And are you still doing tours? Because I never got to go on that tour.
If you'd like to come and see the old plant, yeah, we would be more than happy to take another
thank
tour.
you for your presentation.
Thanks. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you very much for coming today. I was one of those fortunate councillors that got to take the tour, and that's when I found out I'm a bit, apparently, a sewage nerd. I happen to know what flocculation is. So, yeah, we don't have to all answer that question, but somehow it came up, and I happen to know what it was. So, but I really appreciate your coming to give us these updates. And actually, in the last slide that you have, I used to live somewhere near there, but it's at Grant's Landing, where you had in an earlier slide at the float homes that actually reside there, which interestingly have their own sewerage system that they had to create for themselves in order to be there. I did have a question actually regarding Metro. So I'm on the Metro Climate Action Committee, and you mentioned a couple of things that this will include in terms of new biosolid use and energy generation and things like that. So I'm hoping this might be an opportunity, because the funds that we have available through our committee are quite substantial, and to look at opportunities for, I call them replicable types of energy conservation, or using the biosolids or other materials for other uses that could, help to defray some of the costs and be more environmentally friendly. So that's always kind of top of mind for me. And the other thing is, you mentioned the fact that it was going to be situated at an area that is 200 years above the flood level, so the projections. I'm just wondering, given current projections, if that is sufficient. I wonder when that number was decided upon.
So that's something that's a moving target with global warming. So what we've done is we've actually taken that 200-year flood level. We've added a 0.5 meter for global warming and then a 0.5 meter fudge factor. So hopefully we'll be 1 meter above that 200-year level.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your presentation.
Thank you.
The next presentation is another multi-billion-dollar project that TransLink will provide us on the Surrey Langley Skytrain project. Welcome here.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. My name's Jeff Busby. I'm the Project Director for the Surrey Langley Skytrain project. It's my pleasure to provide Council with a short briefing on this. I'll start with a little bit of context. As you may be aware, we've been rolling out a 10-year vision that was approved in 2014. That 10-year vision for south of Fraser included 27 kilometers of rapid transit on the King George 104 and Fraser Highway corridors. Following the municipal elections in 2018, we responded to resolutions that were passed both by the City of Surrey and by the Mayor's Council that directed us to stop the implementation of LRT connecting Newton and Guildford and begin the planning for a potential Skytrain extension on Fraser Highway. So that's the work that I've been asked to undertake with my colleagues, and we are aiming to report back to the Mayor's Council in the summer of this year with our preliminary findings on the costs and other outcomes of Skytrain Extension. So to be more specific, the work that we're undertaking now is developing a reference design, preparing capital and operating cost estimates, projecting the ridership and other benefits of the project, and we're beginning an engagement process, which is part of the reason for us providing this briefing this evening. Ultimately, we're working for a document that can be used to secure senior government approval for the extension. So we have done some work on this corridor. Back in 2017, we worked with members of your staff as well as staff from the City of Langley and City of Surrey to look at a potential Skytrain extension on the Fraser Highway corridor. At the time, the estimate that we arrived at was $2.9 billion. We have $1.6 billion in approved funding. That was funding that was to have been spent on the LRT project. So part of our work is not only reconfirming the cost of going all the way to Langley Centre, but also answering the question of how far can Skytrain come within the money that's been approved. Obviously, there is quite a discrepancy between the two numbers, and so a phased delivery may be required if additional funds are not made available to complete the project all the way to Langley Centre. In terms of goals for the project, we're looking to make sure that it is a very high quality transit service that serves our most rapidly growing part of our region. We also want the project to support sustainability objectives that have been identified at all levels of government and to provide a connection between growing residential areas as well as opportunities to connect people to jobs, schools, healthcare, and other community assets. The corridor itself is quite diverse. It would extend the existing Expo line, which ends at King George Station in Surrey Centre, along Fraser Highway, about 16 kilometres to Langley Centre. The township itself would be served through a station at Willowbrook, near the Willowbrook Mall. Part of our work includes listening to stakeholders, elected officials such as yourselves, First Nations groups, and the general public. We are also doing the important work of listening to internal stakeholders, making sure that the project that is designed and delivered works for our operations folks and for our police force. An important value for TransLink and an important value for the project is making sure that we understand any impacts that the project might have to the environment and that we're designing the project in a way that minimizes those impacts. We are aware that this is a corridor that has some particularly sensitive areas, including the Serpentine River Valley, which has important agricultural resources. We're also not just interested in the natural environment, but we'll be undertaking the potential impact of the project on the human environment, including detailed assessments of noise, vibration, and other concerns. So I want to just give a few brief slides to orient Council to the elements of the Skytrain project that we'll be looking at as we develop the design, and we'll be working closely with your staff and bringing back more detailed updates to Council as the design develops. So for those of you who are familiar with our system, you're probably interacting most often with our stations. They're probably the most visible element of the Skytrain. But as we're looking at the design, we're also contemplating the guideway itself, the vehicles, and the supporting infrastructure that is required to make the system work. For the guideway itself, we have some choices, and we'll be working through those choices from a technical level as well as engaging the communities along Fraser Highway, looking at where to position potential elevated guideway and looking at if any segments of the corridor are appropriate for an at-grade alignment. Thinking about the stations, choices there as well about where those stations are located. So these are just two examples on our systems where an elevated station is located on the side of the road with some advantages and disadvantages, as well as stations that are above the road. These are the types of details that we're starting to look into, and again, we'll bring back more detailed updates as the project advances. We are always evolving our thinking at TransLink about what amenities and elements should be built into our stations to make them comfortable and safe. And so you'll see here just a list of the type of station elements that we'll be contemplating for the stations that could be built as part of this extension. And talking about the vehicles, so this is an extension of the existing Expo line, and so the same trains that go from King George today into Waterfront Station in downtown Vancouver, those trains would be extended out to Langley, providing a single-seat ride for customers all the way into the Burrard Peninsula. The trains themselves would be acquired for the project, modern vehicles with space for a variety of users. And this is probably one of the more important parts of our work, but perhaps one of the less appreciated aspects of the Skytrain system. A significant amount of effort and space is devoted to storing and maintaining the vehicles, providing the automated control system for the vehicles, as well as along the corridors, providing what we call traction power substations to provide the propulsion power to the trains. So these are the details that we're now diving into at the technical level, and we'll be looking to accommodate some or all of these facilities along the corridor. We're not just interested in the project itself, but also how the project connects to other transportation modes in the community. This is particularly important given that the project is expected to attract people from across the Fraser Valley who may be traveling on a variety of modes to access Skytrain. So looking at how people will arrive by bus, walking, cycling, and being picked up and dropped off, as well as potential opportunities for parking at stations. And finally, working closely with planning staff in all of the communities to look at how the project might be a catalyst for continued densification and redevelopment in ways that support the large investment in transit. So that's the scope of the project that we're looking at. Obviously, it's very preliminary. Want to make Council aware of an upcoming opportunity for the public to provide input as we begin the planning work for this project. We are envisioning a couple of phases of public engagement. The first one to begin this month. We are planning a series of open houses. We'll be present at community events along the corridor. There'll be an online survey for many of our folks who participate in these engagements. Being able to participate online provides valuable input for us at the project team. The purpose of this is to provide basic information about the project and understand people's opportunities and potentially sources of concerns or considerations as we develop the design for the project. We're aiming to come back after our July update to the Mayor's Council. We're aiming to come back to the public in September with more specific details about the design of the project itself. This would include specifics on the number and locations of stations, for example. So this is an example of a timeline for ongoing engagement and dialogue with Council, and throughout this process we'll be working more closely with your staff. As I mentioned, the first public engagement is expected to begin this month, a big update to the mayors in July, and a more detailed update on the project in September. If all goes well, we hope to be in a position to move forward on procurement for the project as early as the spring of 2020. Again, the approval dates depends on senior government. It's not entirely within our control. But if that goes well, we're envisioning about a 5-year procurement, design, and construction period. So about 2025 is the earliest that we see the project being open. It's a very brief presentation for you. Look forward to answering any of your questions.
Thank you very much. I'll got a few councillors with questions. We'll start with Councillor Richter.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for coming out today. My question pertains to a memo that our staff put together for Mayor and Council, suggesting an alternate route for the Skytrain to Langley that would probably be a shorter distance and therefore less expensive to build than taking it on its current trajectory. And what's the mechanism to get this idea on the table for TransLink's consideration? And the idea is to run it east on 80th Avenue from 168th Street, so it would go to the Langley Events Center. And part of the logic behind that is that Willoughby is the densest part of Langley right now. We already have a population of about 38,000. And by full build out, it's going to be over 80,000. So it will be the highest populated area in Langley, and as such is desperately in need of transit options. So can we forward this report to you for your consideration?
Yes, so thank you for bringing the alternative to my attention. I think the appropriate mechanism is to bring the analysis that your staff has done to our attention at TransLink. We receive our policy direction from the Mayor's Council, and they've asked us to focus on the Fraser Highway Corridor to Langley Centre, which is the project that's currently on the table. But I think given the points you've just raised, it'd be good to understand that both from a technical perspective, and then we can make a policy recommendations as well as staff up to our Mayor's Council.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
Again, thank you for coming. We always appreciate when folks from TransLink come and meet with us. I wanted to also say, is a copy of your report available to council so we can peruse it or something when we got a minute?
So I have the slides that I've made today. Those can be made available to you, absolutely. The report that I referenced is not available yet. That's something that we'll be making available in the summertime. Yeah.
I want to follow through with also what Councillor Richter said. As you know, if I may through the chair, the people, Surrey Council, Mayor and Council, made a decision to, go not at grade, but to go back to Skytrain. That was a decision they made. So you guys are like a moving target, so to speak. So that's why Councillor Richter and some of us are saying, it's going to come to a certain stage, and they're not sure when it's going to come to Langley City or down Fraser Highway. Not a lot of this side of Fraser Highway is in the township. An awful lot of it's on the other side, going certainly more east towards Abbotsford or Aldergrove. We've got an awful lot of that part, but certainly that's not on your line. We also wanted to take into consideration what you've done in the past, or what TransLink has done in the past, is put the trains where the population is, as Councillor Rick. So that means if you go into Vancouver, you're going to go into the main areas where the stadiums are, where the hotels are, where your population bases are. We would like you to consider the same thing here, and not just looking at that with the freeway there. And there's a whole bunch of opportunities for that, for TransLink, and also for the mayors to consider. So I appreciate you coming today. This is great news. I love to see the fact you're coming down, and we're very happy. We've kept quiet during the campaigns, but it's good news for us, and thank you for coming. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Woodward.
Yeah, just I want to thank you again for coming here today. You mentioned phased delivery, so I wanted to ask you a bit more, to follow up a bit more on that. The likelihood of within this 5-year design and construction timeframe of getting all the way to Willowbrook seems remote.
Well, I don't want to speculate about things that are not to be made at the kind of staff level. Certainly, with the $1.6 billion available, we think that we can only get about halfway down the corridor. And so for additional money to be made available, it would require actions by all 3 levels of government. And those are active discussions that are occurring at the political and policy level. What we've viewed our task to do at TransLink is to provide accurate information about what are the costs, what are the ridership and other outcomes that we can expect from the full project, as well as from the scope of the project that we can build within the money that's available.
Yeah, so of course, if someone may show up with more money, and then you can get down to Langley City, as the current direction seems to be to focus on the Fraser Highway corridor.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned ridership forecasting. So, how much does that cost, and how much time does that take you? So could you do additional ridership forecasting on an alternative destination where potentially 80 to 100,000 people live, with no commitments and no change of direction, but to try to justify why you would take Skytrain to where 25,000 people live versus taking Skytrain to where up to 125,000 people could live within 25 years?
Yeah, I can't make any commitments today, but it's something that, again, once we receive the information from the report, we can take a look at and get back to you.
But you just forecast, like you said, in terms of no commitments, but just more information for policymakers to make this decision. Since if we're potentially looking at phased delivery, to where it would divert, that maybe it would make sense to understand that justification. That, what seems to have happened from us in the Township of Langley is that Langley City really hasn't had to prove a business case of why Skytrain would go to that municipality when they really don't have the population to justify it, versus the population that we could offer in terms of potential ridership. But how would we know what that is unless you forecast it?
No, I appreciate your perspective.
Okay. So, and I also wanted to mention, currently you mentioned, of course, you're going to get pretty close to September, and you're going to have that design and costed out July, September timeframe ready to go, ready to approve, ready to find that additional money or get as far as you can get. How many stations are in the township again currently as per the design?
In the work we did in 2017, it was just the one station at Willowbrook Mall. And I have to say, I really appreciate the work that we've done with your staff to think about how the mall can redevelop and support the station. I think that's a really good foresight in terms of making sure that that the land use there is supportive of transit. And so, again, I don't expect that to change much if we follow on the Fraser Highway corridor as we've been asked to do by the Mayor's Council.
And hopefully that Langley City can come forward with some actual business case justification for that, for those decisions. If we're it feels to me like we're revisiting sort of Skytrain to the area, because before it was going to be something else and now it's something else, and it feels to me at least like one person essentially made that decision. And so here we are maybe revisiting the entire corridor, and maybe there's a good opportunity to do that. So I'm kind of being repetitive. But one last thing, maybe a little cheeky, is you referred to it as the Surrey-Langley Skytrain project. Maybe you want to call it the Surrey-Langley City Skytrain project.
Okay, we'll take that under advisement.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Langley. It's both Langleys. That's the last time I checked. Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I've just recently become a transit fan, and I take the bus from Carval into, is it Production Way?
Lougheed Town Centre.
Yeah, and that is just a fabulous service. I can get right down to Metrotown in like an hour. But if you looked at the volume of people taking that 555 bus back and forth, would that be an indicator of the potential head count you could get for a Skytrain station at LEC? Because I'm pretty sure those people would take the Skytrain at LEC instead of the bus.
Yes, well, I appreciate, first of all, I appreciate you taking our service. It's good to hear that it's high quality. We do have plans to increase the level of service on the 555 service, including double-decker buses, which you may have seen running on the system in a trial. Those buses will be arriving, I believe, this year. So that has been a very successful service for us, and it's something we expect to grow. In terms of the planning for an alternative, as I said, there's work that we could do at the technical level. There's also quite a bit of work that would need to be done at the policy and political level for us to change the emphasis of our work.
But it could be done.
Could,
Yeah.
yes.
And of course, having our mayor on the Mayor's Council would probably be helpful.
Yeah, thanks. I have brought that forward. And I've also brought forward that the construction should start in Langley and go as far as it can.
Oh, yes.
And that'll hurry up those that want to finish it, because there'll be a gap, and get us to 168th. Thanks for that. Did want to, a couple points have been made. Obviously, the timeline is important, and you've addressed that. Funding is the most important, and there was 1.65 billion that was approved in the phase 2 of the Mayor's vision for the L line. And when Surrey Council decided to not go ahead with light rail on the L line, but instead go to Skytrain on the Fraser Highway line, the 1.6 at that time, 1.6 million was left, and that's now been allocated. The preliminary costs, and they were very preliminary, were $2.9 billion for the complete line down the Fraser Highway. So, just on the calculations, 1.3 billion short. So the work that you're doing now is very important, because right now we're doing a lot of guessing and a lot of anticipating without that work, which is important to know what the cost will be with 1.6 billion, how far that's going to take us. And certainly, I know Surrey is working with your staff and looking at ways to save money and get it as far as it possibly can. But that additional funding requires, as you mentioned, 3 levels of government. Right now, there's an election coming up in the fall, and I know the Mayor's Council are very busy working with a strategy to make sure that all parties find that funding our transportation system is very important and looking to get that money to complete the mayor's vision. So that's going on right now, and it also requires the province to come on board, but it also has a component where the mayor's council have to find funding so all three levels have to get funding for that last piece. So as you say, that can't be guaranteed because we're relying on other parties, and we're working hard to get that, and hopefully we'll get there. The other point I want to make is that I think the alignment going along 80th Avenue to Langley Van Centre and then scooping down to Carvalth Exchange is actually a little bit shorter than going into the city. However, there's also we also have a community that's growing and will be growing rapidly, and that's the Brookswood-Fernridge area. And with the Skytrain where it is now, Skytrain basically is designed to be a rapid transit along a main corridor with buses feeding into it. And so I just wanted to know if you could address the future plans for Beeline buses coming down 200. So Beeline and connectivity from Brookswood-Fernridge and also from Maple Ridge, Willoughby area, connecting into the city centre or into the I don't know where the connection point is going to be, but if it's city centre or Willowbrook Mall. But that's a big component to it. Moving the line too far north may eliminate the accessibility of it to our folks that live in Brookswood-Fernridge. This isn't a City of Langley line. This is to support the connection from buses from the entire area. So I believe Beeline buses are on the table for that.
Yes, you're correct, Your Worship. There are Beeline buses being rolled out as part of the three-phase plan, and I believe in the third phase of the plan there's Beeline service on the 200th corridor. And as you point out, the forecasting work that we do, it will show us the market areas by which people will be drawn to the SkyTrain, including, as you point out, a very important role for connecting bus services to feed people into that system. So that will be part of the work that we'll be doing and would get confirmed in more detail as the project advances.
Because Beelines provide more frequency, more capacity, and because we're certainly finding every community wants more transit, except for West Vancouver. But other than them, we are looking to get more transit, and certainly a Langley Event Centre after a hockey game, it's hard to get on. It's just not as frequent. But we need to build that up to connect into that SkyTrain line. So if it doesn't go that way, that is a big part of the plan. Is that what I understand? Okay.
Good.
Councillor Woodward, you had a question?
Yeah, I just had one more question to follow up on some of Mayor Frose's comments, because again, I think, of course, with him being one of our core representatives there, a bit of a disadvantage because there's a lot of good information that it takes time to absorb. So I definitely appreciate some of those considerations. In regards to, again, we're gonna come back to the Langley City, Langley Township item in terms of the station. So is it true? Maybe it's too simplistic, which is why it's great to have you here. That when we get stations, or individual municipalities have stations located in their jurisdictions, that tends to be where new density and employment lands congregate. Is that too simplistic?
It is a complicated dynamic. I mean, obviously, TransLink's role can be to provide the transit infrastructure. We rely on municipalities to enable changes to their land use. It has been our practice for the last two plans to try to negotiate what we call supportive policy agreements. So these are agreements between TransLink and local government describing the actions that local government can take to help support the transit investment. One observation I would make is that we do a lot of research about how people travel through the region, and very much people do not travel with political jurisdictions in mind. People travel across our region for all sorts of purposes, and we expect that would be the same conditions here. We have some tools available to us that help us predict how people will change their travel in response to changes in the transportation network, and that's the tools we'll be relying on. And those don't really recognize political jurisdictions. They recognize the distribution of people and jobs, and that's a more accurate representation of the demand for our services.
Yeah, and I think that, from my perspective, of course, is that if you have no people by relative comparison to Langley City versus the township, and you have no projected growth by any comparison, really, in terms of relative terms, that you're kind of getting SkyTrain by default, and that you're going to be relying then on adding the density after the fact, which seems a tad unfair. And at least, speaking to my previous comments, that at least maybe Langley City can have to prove that they're the best destination, which, at least I'm going to use the word very specifically, perception. My perception is that they maybe haven't had to do that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Questions? Yeah, thanks. All right. So the delegation of the Township of Langley Firefighters Local 4550 has withdrawn, and we'll move on to reports to Council F1. And could I have a motion, please? Councillor Arneson, moved by second by Councillor Davis. Any discussion on F1? Councillor Richter?
Yeah, I was just wondering, why are these homes not eligible for tax sale like other homes
Because
are?
they're gone.
They floated away.
Did they actually
disappeared.
move the
The odds are they've been moved, demolished, or moved and lowered to a lesser elevation.
okay, so they're just not physically there anymore. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. All right, call a question on F1. That carries unanimously. Move on to F2, committee grants, additional recommendations. Is there anybody that needs to, no conflicts? Or need to separate? So which one we can divide that out and then we can go.
Which one?
Yeah.
AAA senior housing.
Okay, so AAA senior housing, where is that in this whole list of?
B2, B3.
Oh, they're a new, okay.
Yeah, sorry, they're a new edition. I don't know what page it's on. No, well, it was
If I-
pending. It was pending.
Okay, I just want to know which one. Okay, you need to step aside for that, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, you declare conflict on that. Anybody else? No. Okay, so nobody else has a conflict? Okay, so is there a motion to put these on the floor, except, or I think we should just deal with the one that Councillor Richter has stepped out for, and that would be the
Richter?
AAA housing. Sorry, Councillor Arneson. I'm looking at you and thinking Councillor Arneson had to step out for. So we just deal with that one in particular. So is there a mover for that? Which one is that? So if maybe the clerk or Mr. Backen can. Okay, moved by Councillor Whitmarsh, second by Councillor Davis. Mr. Backen, just
First one, it's table B3. It's the very first
okay.
one on the list.
Okay, good. So we're moving that one now. Discussion on that. Councillor Richter?
No, actually, my question.
Okay, so we'll just clear the queue. Okay, seeing no discussion, I'll call the question. No, I don't have to cancel and put her, saying mark absent. Just give me a second here. Okay, yes? Okay, I haven't finished this one yet, so just, I voted, but I had to cancel to put Councillor Arneson out. So if we could just vote again, that'd be great, thanks. Okay, it carries unanimously. And so now we can ask Councillor Arneson back in, and Councillor Ferguson, you have a...
I'm looking at the Langley Seniors Resource Society. It's A2-2.
Okay.
I have to step out on that one.
Okay, and that one is which paragraph?
A2-2.
A2 sorry, which paragraph is that?
I don't know if I might need staff help, or
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is a supplemental or whether it's already been voted on.
I think it's already been voted on.
If it's not in there, I'm not in
No,
conflict.
I think that's the Seniors Resource Center. It's already been voted on.
That was voted on the last
Last
meeting,
time,
Your
yeah, so
Worship.
you're not in
There
conflict.
is-
Fine, okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to get back. I just got to. Okay, I just got to get this screen back in order. I'm going to clear the queue just so we can start. If you, Councillor Richter, we're going to push it again. Then we're start over again. Okay, I need a mover for all of them. Councillor Woodward moves all. Is there a seconder? Councillor Whitmarsh. Councillor Richter.
Yes. On table C4, I see Aldergrove's got a Canada Day parade that they're getting funded $5,000 for. And I'm just wondering why this parade is getting $5,000. Is this a new parade or has it been around for a while? I know they do their Christmas parade every year.
Mr. Tulamello is going to step forward to provide us with the background.
I was under the impression that we would only be funding long-standing parades.
This is a parade that has happened last year and received funding under the I believe it was the community grants category. And this year we put it under the minor festivals category because of the road closures and the decision that council made at the last meeting.
Yeah, but so it's considered a long-standing parade then?
I believe it's 2 or 3 years. I really don't know.
All right, thank you.
Is it, just clarification, is it the same organization that puts on the Christmas parade?
Yes, it is.
It is, so they have some track record on this. Okay.
That's
thanks.
correct.
Thanks.
So is the Christmas parade being funded?
That is being funded through, I believe, the community grants category. It isn't being funded through the minor festivals.
Okay.
Thanks. Councillor Woodward?
Yeah, just while you're here, Mr. Tumala, I'll just ask a question. It's really more about the process for every year. So what I feel like we're doing is we're getting a bunch of applications in, and then we're looking at this person not fitting this category. Maybe they can fit over here, and we can deal with community associations and so on and so forth. Would it be more helpful to maybe take a look at the grant program at a CPC meeting sometime in the fall? Look at all of these issues that have come up over the last 3 or 4 years in a more comprehensive way, and then deal with it prior to the application period in 2020, as opposed to what we do now, which seems to be we get a bunch of applications in, and now we're changing categories and moving things around.
Through your worship to Councillor Woodward, a review of the grants criteria hasn't taken place for probably 5 years, and it would be appropriate maybe to do a review of all the criteria at some point in the future.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that makes sense, and if you, I'll just let you go then, and I'll raise that here in a minute or two. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So no further.
I want to just try that again. Sorry about that.
Okay. Sorry, what do you want to do now?
To speak to the motion.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know in what form that might be helpful. Maybe I'll ask you, Mr. Mayor, or ask over to staff, what form that might be helpful to maybe schedule it for a CPC meeting in the fall?
Yeah, we could do that in other business.
You want to do that in other business?
Or right after this. It
Or I can make a motion right here after this item is concluded with that?
Yeah, either way.
Either way, you'll take that? Okay.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so I'm going to call the question on F2, the balance of F2. Carries unanimously. And following from this motion, Councillor Woodward wishes to make a motion. If you want to make the motion.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. I'm open to how it's worded, but my intent would be that we would look at a CPC meeting in the fall to do a presentation/review of the grant program prior to applications for 2020.
Okay, second by Councillor Richter. Discussion. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, just a comment with that. One of the recommendations that's made in this report is that council consider establishing criteria and mechanisms outside the community grants process for dealing with funding for community associations. I'm wondering if are you suggesting, Councillor Woodward, that this would be a time as well in that same meeting that we could discuss some criteria and make a decision around that in the same meeting?
I would agree. So for me, I would be to look at maybe some streamlining some of the different categories which are addressing different problems. Maybe they can be consolidated down to simplify the application process. I mean, I haven't put a lot more thought into it, but also did notice a lot of commentary around recognition of community associations that we're funding now as some sort of a special status. I would like to discuss in more detail what that actually looks like and means, and maybe create another category for that doesn't have that kind of recognition or has some way that, which was mentioned in the report, if someone creates a single issue community association, that maybe we don't fund that, maybe flush that out a little bit in the fall, and maybe get in a process where we're looking at the grant program prior to the application period, not after the application period.
Okay.
I think all those things can be on the table, certainly.
Yeah, I think that's what I would like to see, that part of the CBC.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Long?
Thanks. Well, it'll be essential that we do that earlier in the fall rather than later, because what happens is it drags on, and of course we've done this over the years, and we'll try it again. It'll be a lot of fun, I'm sure, but organizations are counting on funding, and sometimes this gets left a bit too late, and I do believe the cutoff is early in January, February, around Christmas and all of that stuff. So if we're going to do this, which it sounds like we are, perhaps I'd suggest we do it in the early fall and make sure we don't leave it too long.
After the summer break. I think it'll be some time. Okay. See no further discussion. I'm going to call the question. And what should I number this? What should I label this? Just, do you want me to label it F2 or? Okay. you here for the vote? I had you absent. Okay. Sure. We can just put you're in favor. Madam Clerk, if you just put Councillor Ferguson as in favor. I had him absent. So.
Okay, got it.
All right, so now we move on to F3, and this is Agricultural Land Commission application number 100362, Pacific Land Group, the 24900 block of Fraser Highway. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Long, seconder. Councillor Kuntz, discussion. Councillor Richter.
That land is perfectly capable of growing things. It doesn't need to be paved over so they can display tractors. I'm not in favor of this referral, and I won't be supporting it. Had they chosen to do something more along the lines of agriculture, like maybe putting in community gardens so they can grow produce to sell in their store, I think that would be a more appropriate use than paving it over.
Thank you. I don't think you're referring to Article. I don't think they own this, so I'm not sure. Councillor Davis.
Yes. Okay, page. Sorry, did you just meant? Yeah, this chunk. It's got on here co-op overflow parking. Is Otter Co-op associated with this in any way, shape, or form?
Mr. Backen.
They're not owners of the land as we understand it. I think they have a prospective tenancy. That's part of the reason this is coming forward.
Okay. Is it going to be in phase? Because on page 5 it says here, Area 3, Farm Equipment Display Area, Future Expansion. I guess when we, if we approve this, well, if it goes from here to the ALC, then it's got to come back and we've got to rezone the thing. So it's going to be the whole piece of property that gets rezoned. Is that correct?
Ultimately, that's likely what takes place. This is simply the referral to the ALC for the non-farm use. So it does have to come back, you're correct, and there have to be more details provided.
Okay, it's stating in here, this proposed agri-service will use, but this is coming from the Pacific Land Group. And they're talking about making it for seasonal farmers market, farm products, farm equipment sales, repairs, farm tractors, dealerships, seed suppliers, equestrian supply store, veterinary clinics. And it is in the agro service center designated for the rural community plan. But it is topsoil. But anyhow, I just wanted to clarify those points. I don't know if the ALC would be the final ones to make the decision anyhow, I guess. Over.
Your Worship, just to assist, I think what you're seeing in the descriptions are the non-farm use that's being sought from the Land Commission by the owner. These properties were designated in the township's rural plan some time ago as being, as you've said. So if it goes forth to the ALC and if they agree to the non-farm use as specified, then it must come back to the township to deal with the underlying zoning.
Okay, thank you.
The whole parcel will?
Whole parcel.
Yeah. Okay, so it's, yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arneson?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I wanted actually to raise as a condition of this application that it go forward to our Agricultural Advisory and Economic Enhancement Committee for their feedback. I think that one of the reasons that we have that committee is to get their perspective. And so I'm wondering if I could add that as amendment to this application. And I don't know how that would affect the timeliness of it going forward. And in the event that it's not supported by council because it would hold up the application. Whatever the vote is, I still would suggest that we send it to the committee. They are a committee that both considers the agricultural impacts as well as the economic development. And so I think if we get some feedback from them, it would be very helpful with respect to the balancing of interests that we have. So I just want to put that forward.
Thank you. Councillor Whitmarsh?
Yeah, just as a to add to Councillor Arneson's comment, it does say on page 8 that it will be forwarded to the AAEEC, which is helpful, but what it does say on here is it says for information purposes, and I guess I was wondering if it should be included that not just for information, but also for feedback, because information and feedback are two different things.
Your Worship, can I just provide some historic background context for Council?
Thank you.
Historically, Your Worship, we have received direction from Council to refer applications to the committee for information unless they are not consistent with previous policy direction of Council. This application, as was referenced earlier, is in compliance with the existing rural plan. Therefore, it has not been the practice to refer applications that are consistent with previous Council direction, policy, or plans, and hence the referral for information purposes.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Davis?
I don't want to go into an argumentative mode, though, but it is this piece of property. You know, if they're talking, like if you go down towards Langley, there's a little John Deere dealership. There's, you know, it states in this plan that I forget exactly where it is, but it states that it would not negatively impact the surrounding agriculture uses. Somewhere in here I read it would would enhance the agriculture in the Aldergrove. Like, where the heck? Okay, you know what? Anyhow, if the committee this time could look at it, give their feedback, I think it would help, because even though that it abides by the bylaws, or what, wouldn't be no problem. I would second an amendment to have them look at it and give their feedback, because there's half of them are farmers in the area and half of them are, you know, business related, and this is both. So I would support if you would like to put that amendment on, Councillor Anderson.
Maybe Mr. Backen.
Your Worship, this is I understand the concerns, and they're certainly helpful. The challenge we face, again, is more of a policy issue. The township some time ago adopted a rural plan. The rural plan provides for various uses. The Land Commission came along and affected that. The Land Commission has their jurisdiction. Council has its jurisdiction. The challenge we face is that any committee may say this is a good idea, or they may say it's not a good idea. But all they can really say is that it complies with the rural plan or not, because its council has to adjudicate upon whether or not this complies with the rural plan. We've seen this in other situations with subdivisions and home site severances and properties that are already zoned for certain purposes. So the council can certainly refer it if they so choose. The question has to come back to what is the question being asked. It's been suggested, is this a good idea or not a good idea? In many ways, that's been determined by the adoption of the rural plan. It might be more appropriate then to refer the rural plan to the group for a review of those issues, or some protocols or decisions being made as to whether or not the rural plan is meeting the needs of the AAEEC.
Thank you. And thank you for that. This motion is to forward it to the Agricultural Land Commission. They still have their work to do, and then it would come back here, and I think then we'd have more opportunity. But really, it boils down to this council making the decision, and no matter what the advisory group says, I think we need to make a decision here. And if the decision is not to forward it, it's going to save everybody a lot of time. If it is to forward it, we're certainly going to have that second look at it when it comes back for rezoning, and I think that'd be more appropriate. So at this point, I would call the question. Councillor Long.
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's nothing stops the committee from making comment or discussing it, forwarding it to them for information, and if they want to make comment, I think they should be free to.
Yeah.
But yes, this decision has to happen here at the table.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call the question. The motion carries with Councillor Richter, Councillor Arneson, Councillor Davis opposed. And move on to correspondence. There are 2 items of correspondence. If I can have a motion to receive both, and then there's an action item on one of them. Councillor Ferguson, second by Councillor Arneson. I'm going to call the question on receipt. Carries unanimously. On G2, there's a request from the Mr. Hugh Carter, from the chair of the UDI, to make a presentation to council. And so the request is that council would consider a 15 to 20 minute presentation. Councillor Long, did you move that? Councillor Long, second by Councillor Whitmarsh. Councillor Ferguson, discussion?
Well, I think it's a good idea. I'm not sure if we wanted to have it at a CPC or a regular council meeting, whatever works best for us.
I think regular council meetings. Thank you. And Councillor Arneson?
Yes, thank you. I'm in support of this. And so what I was wondering is whether or not, I know that this is going to be broadly about housing, but I wondered if whether or not we could ask for a bit of a tailoring of the presentation just to touch on housing affordability and density with zoning in and around 208. I want to basically bring in the roadway infrastructure into this and talk about the interplay between those two things and how, UDI kind of sees that situation.
Sure, thank you. That'll make it a more local presentation. Ms. Bowery took notes of that. Thank you. Okay, with that, I'll call the question on G2. And carries the Council Woodward opposed. Okay, move on to minutes of committees. And so H1 is the Agriculture Advisory and Economic Heritage, CPC, Recreation, Culture, Parks, Seniors Advisory. Can I have a motion to adopt the minutes? Councillor Davis, seconder. Councillor Kunst. Call the question on H1. Carries unanimously. H2, there's a CPC recommended motion. Could I have a motion on that, please? Councillor Arneson, second by Councillor Davis. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Oh, okay, I'll cancel that. And Councillor Arneson, you're on.
Thank you, Worship. I just wondered through some direction to staff if Council would support taking the information, putting it into a memo that came forward from the Council Priority Committee meeting regarding affordable housing options. I thought that it might be useful to the new community advisory teams that we have for the neighborhoods in Brookswood Fernage, just for their information while they are working together to come up with our new neighborhood plans.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Backen, you can take that. Thank you. I'll call the question on H2. That carries unanimously. And H3 is a CPC committee recommended motion. Okay, so this is the permissive tax exemption bylaw to maintain the current practice and further staff undertake a review of the bylaw as soon as practical. This is regarding the church provisions. Could I have Councillor Whitmarsh second? Right. Councillor Kuntz, discussion on H3. Seeing none, I'll call the question. Carries unanimously. H4, Seniors Advisory Committee recommended motion to direct staff to prepare an amendment to Council Advisory Committee established bylaw number 4700 to include Fraser Health representative as a non-voting member on the Seniors Advisory Committee. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Arneson, second by Councillor Davis, and Councillor Richter.
Why would we make them come to a meeting and not let them vote?
So, Councillor Arneson, do you want to respond?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, through you to Councillor Richter. There are different options and mechanisms through which they can participate. It could be the case that they could be integrated into our group and have a vote, but I believe that the bylaw currently requires then that they be a resident of the Township of Langley, as well as some other considerations. So upon discussing this, and the committee itself deemed that they really wanted to have their representation, but it appeared that it wasn't really the committee's concern that they weren't voting members. They were there more as an informational base to help us to understand a number of different policies and things that they were doing. So it's more or less for our information's sake. It's not to say that we couldn't change that at some time in the future. And I actually would defer to Ms. Bauer on this because she's the most familiar with our legislation and the options that we considered.
Okay, does that help? All right, I'll call.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll call the question on H4. Carries unanimously. And other business. What do we got here? Councillor Richter.
Yes, great. So I will move the motion that the Langley Seniors Resource Centre be added to the list of community hall facilities eligible to apply for annual Township of Langley grants.
Is there a seconder? I'll second it. Councillor Woodward seconds. There was a motion earlier that our granting process be reviewed in the fall. I would like this referred to that so we could have a fulsome discussion. So Councillor Long is going to move referral to the, and Councillor Woodward seconds it, so referral to the CPC where we discuss grants. And so that's open for discussion. Any discussion on the referral motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. And Councillor Ferguson's away. I didn't mark him absent. Councillor Richter opposes and carries unanimously with Councillor Ferguson absent. Thank you. And Councillor Long, get you on next. We'll wait for Councillor Ferguson to come in.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. There is a motion in front of you. It was a request of staff over the last 7 or 8 years that this piece of sidewalk was missing. And it's the Ministry of Transportation that's supposed to do it, and they keep saying, yeah. So staff said we should put a motion. So I make a motion that they fix that little piece of sidewalk that's from 32nd Avenue to Fraser Highway that is not there.
Okay,
and,
thank you.
I can read it if you like, but there it is. Therefore, we resolve that the mayor forward a letter, that you send him a letter, Your Worship, a very demanding letter.
Strongly worded letter.
Fix that sidewalk. Yeah.
It's not in the motion. Is there a seconder? Councillor Whitmarsh, discussion on I-2. Seeing none, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Is there any other business? Councillor Davis.
Just maybe a quick update on 72nd Avenue, the closure up to Thunderbird and then the strawberry fields for the Dreetigers. The horse riding season and the strawberries are starting to grow. I just wondered, it looks really good up there. I was walking through it the other day. I just wondered if
you want to know
on date
when it will be completed?
Yeah, when are they going to put the pavement down?
Mr. Seffi?
Thank you, Your Worship. As you may recall, there was a decision of council to direct staff to delay the construction window that was scheduled last year to reduce the impact on the surrounding farms. And as such, that meant the construction was actually occurring during the winter. And as you know, we had a fairly severe winter this year with a lot of snow that impacted construction, which is a long way of saying it's been delayed because of the weather. And as such, it's currently looking at another month before it can be completed.
Yeah, well, that's still okay, though. I mean, that'll be, other than the horse shows, straight people driving around, but another month will be fine, yeah. Okay, the other quick thing is...
And it's always turkey season, just so you know.
Oh, also, don't even worry about it. I noticed that Labonte, now that Labonte's open, just traffic patterns really good. It says the number one highway in 216 supposed to open in the winter of 2019. So, but I noticed I haven't seen a thing happen for the last month or so. I guess, do we know, or I guess it's still looking good for the winter?
I think one thing is they've done a preload on the north side, and so that preload's taken some time. So they're still working around it, but I believe that's one of the holdups.
I see.
That's correct, Your Worship, and the latest we have heard is the project still scheduled for completion end of this year.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
I talked to them earlier when it was snow all over, and he said it hasn't stopped settling yet, so they have to, that is really a factor in when they can move forward.
You don't want to repeat a 200.
That's right. Councillor Richter.
Yeah, this memorandum on the Surrey Langley Skytrain project, I'd like to ask staff to forward that to TransLink. And I'm also wondering, Mr. Mayor, of course I don't know how the Mayor's Council works, but is there any way you could arrange to get to have our staff maybe make a presentation to the Mayor's Council on why the 80th Avenue corridor would be an option for Langley?
Certainly. Mr. Backen, I think by direction we could forward that to TransLink. Don't need a motion for that. And I think with that, if perhaps a letter on making a presentation, or at least to start the conversation. But I know it has been discussed with. I have brought it up. So, okay, thank you, Councillor Woodward.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up. There was an email from a new resident of Willoughby Rock regarding some concerns around the safety of the new intersection at 78B and 208 Street. Wonder if we can get a written response on what's going on with that intersection and when we can expect the completion of some of those roadworks there.
Maybe
Or unless you can fill me in right now.
Certainly, we can do both, Your Worship. I can advise Council that there is I guess the current condition is an interim condition. The plan is for that intersection to be signalized with a east leg, and that is going to occur, we expect, sometime this year, over the next few months, based on the developer on the east side, based on their current timelines. And as I said earlier, we can put that in writing as a response to the resident and then copy Council.
That would be great if you could respond to the resident and then CC the rest of us. That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other business? Seeing none, motion to terminate.
Mrs. Doubleday, termination.
Second by Councillor Long. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Thank you.